Panini is your choice for the most collectible sports cards on the planet. I got this Ladd McConkey autograph out of a pack of Panini Prism draft picks yesterday. That's the home of your rated rookies. Ladd McConkey autograph, one on average autograph per pack on those Prism draft picks. Visit PaniniAmerica.net to collect your favorite college and NFL stars. These are gorgeous. Ari wants my Ladd autograph. Ari wants my, this is a blue Peyton Manning numbered 249 in his Tennessee uniform. I see you salivating. You thought it was Arch. You thought I pulled an Arch. Hasn't happened yet.
That was a pump.
You know, maybe I'm not going to pull an Arch until Arch is the QB1 at Texas, and we don't know when that's going to be. Maybe we'll talk about that today. We'll see. But PaniniAmerica.net is your choice for the best sports cards on the planet. Visit PaniniAmerica.net to collect your favorite college and NFL stars. Start your collection today. Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3. Happy New Year's Eve. Ari is in California, ready to cover the Rose Bowl tomorrow. We have the Fiesta Bowl tonight. Round 2 begins. We've got appetizers all day. We've got the ReliaQuest Bowl, which used to have actual appetizers sponsoring it because it was the Outback Bowl and they had bloomin' onions and coconut shrimp. They don't have that anymore. I don't know what a ReliaQuest is, and I don't know if I want one at my seat in the press box.
Outback's blooming onion walked so Pop-Tarts could run, right?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And then Chick-fil-A had the Peach Bowl, and then they became the Chick-fil-A Bowl. But then because it got into the playoff, they were like, you got to have a name. You can't have just a sponsor name. So it went back to being the Peach Bowl. And so they've not done the cow and nugget thing that they could have done. We need to get a Wendy Spicy, Wendy Saucy Nuggs Bowl. Can we have a Wendy Saucy Nuggs Bowl? I would be down for that.
I would be down for it too, especially if we got to go eat a bunch of nuggets. Like, I don't even care about the football. Let's just go smash some food, The annual bowl sponsorship game is quite fun. We're going to have to do that next year before all the bowl games start. But I don't know what ReliaQuest is, and it has been a bowl sponsor for multiple years. And I feel like if you are a bowl sponsor and you don't do a good job year over year of explaining to the people what you are, then you've wasted your money. Yes, exactly.
Like, I'll give you an example of one that it's not fun like the Pop-Tarts Bowl, but it worked. So Pacific Life did the Holiday Bowl forever. Pacific Life is an insurance company. They had the humpback whale breaching in the commercial, and then the whale breaches. Like, now I know I would have never known what Pacific Life was, but I know what it is because of the Holiday Bowl. And that's how you do it. But yeah, if we don't know what your company does or can't tell you, you've wasted your money.
Well, the thing about insurance that makes me laugh is that, like, I don't know why they advertise so much. And again, this is over my head and I don't know a lot of things. But when I shop for insurance, I shop for cheapest price with same coverage. And like, that's who I pick.
See, I shop for who has a British gecko or a caveman.
Is that what you do?
Yeah, that's that exclusively, or Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Like, because when I think insurance, I think Andy Reid.
I do have a toxic trait of, like, when my wife or somebody says, I've got good news, and I just say, did you save a bunch of money on your car insurance by switching to Geico? I say that a lot. But yeah, no, is this a brand I've heard of? Maybe that's part of it. Just having brand recognition so people trust that you're going to get
I believe that's what it was. I actually listened to a podcast about that at one point of why there are so many in the advertising industry, and that's exactly what it is. It is brand recognition. So we've got a little case of brand recognition questions coming into this round of the playoff because we have a bunch of name brands, and then you have Boise State and you have Arizona State trying to crash the party. Because I think the idea of this is I go back to the NCAA basketball tournament, and I realize it's not an apples to apples comparison, but people always say you want the upsets in the first weekend, but like Sweet 16, Elite 8, you want all the brand names. So this is where you want to make sure the brand names are in the semifinals, or at least the TV does. But Boise State and Arizona State want to crash the party. And now we got to find out if they can. You've got Boise State playing Penn State tonight. You've got Arizona State playing Texas tomorrow. Ari, we saw just 4 god-awful games in the first round.
Can I
And I'm not going to relitigate that. Go ahead.
Because you said something that I'm not sure I'm on board with. Or maybe I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So you say in the NCAA tournament, like the basketball tournament, we all root for Cinderella, which is true. We all want to see
in the first weekend.
In the first weekend. Well, I mean, I don't know. There's a certain aspect of fans too that.
Yeah, I think like I remember because like when VCU was going deep, they picked up a lot of fans along the way. But I feel like people in general are more interested when you get to the end and it's a bunch of big old brands they know.
But there is a huge difference between the tenor of the NCAA tournament and what we just experienced last week. Like the NCAA tournament, once the seeds in the field are revealed, like that the field is the field and there's no relitigating where people should have been seated. Now, there might be teams that are upset with what they got or fans that feel like they could have done better or are displeased with the path. But there's no should UCSB have been in. You know what I mean? Like they get it and they get it.
Because there's 34 at-larges.
Right.
Like at best, you're the 35th best team if you got left out.
Yeah.
Isn't it? And you have no claim at that point.
In college, the upsets bids are, I almost feel like a confirmation that the committee did it right. Like, I don't know if the general public, I don't know if the South was rooting for upsets. I think the South was rooting for blowouts because they want everybody to say, hey, look, don't you think Alabama, South Carolina, or I don't know that SMU was America's sweetheart last week. I don't think that Boise State tonight is going to be like everybody huddle around the television to see if Ashton Genty can do it. I think that in college football, and maybe I'm completely off on this, you push back if I'm wrong, that there is a sort of gatekeeping of the elites and maybe it's because the fan bases of the elite teams are the loudest and biggest, and that's why it feels that way. But our Purdue fans, maybe that's a terrible example. Our Alabama fans,
Mississippi State fans, come on.
Mississippi State, that's a good one. Are Mississippi State fans excited about today because they want to see if Boise State can beat Penn State? Or do they want Penn State to beat the crap out of Boise so they can show everybody that there's only 5 teams that should have been in or 2 conferences that have worthy, I don't know. So
here's what I've said all along about this size playoff. And I've been saying it since before it was long before it was a thing and long before it was something that might actually happen. That the first time you had a Cinderella win in a big time national college football tournament, that's when it becomes the most popular sporting event in America. You got to have the Cinderella win. I just showed you Chris from the chat. No, he said nobody wants Cinderellas in the college football field at all. They think they don't. The second one of those games is down to the wire, all of America, except for the fans of the name brand team, will begin rooting for the underdog. We'll begin rooting for the Cinderella. We think we don't want it until we get it.
Well, let's also unpack Cinderella and the definition. I think the Cinderella in NCAA basketball is a mid-major team that no one could name a single player on, and looks like what was the one who beat Kentucky? St. Peter's. That is the definition of Cinderella. A team's entire basketball budget doesn't even pay for a year of the other coach's salary, that type of thing.
Right.
And in basketball, a team like that gets hot can do it. But is Penn State a Cinderella?
Penn State's a Cinderella relative to Ohio State and Georgia, but not to anybody else. Nobody, I don't think the average fan considers Penn State a Cinderella. They have tons of money. James Franklin gets paid tons of money. They have a budget for players. They have tons of NFL players on their roster. Like,
so you think that Cinderella, the definition that we use in basketball, transfers over to football? Like, you think the only way you can
sure,
be
because Cinderella
is if
doesn't
you're a
win the
small
national
school?
title in basketball either. Now, it almost happened one time. Like, I was there in Indy when Gordon Hayward almost made that shot to beat Duke. The difference, and you've mentioned this a bunch of times these last few weeks, the difference between the basketball tournament and the football tournament. In basketball, one or two players can make all the difference. Like Gordon Hayward, when Butler played Duke that year, Gordon Hayward was the best player on the court. Duke didn't have anyone as good as him.
But when Duke is also playing basketball, the only people who are rooting for Duke are Duke fans.
That's
the
true.
ACC
But
isn't being like, come on, Duke. Like that, it's different. It's not the same
I think
thing.
you'll get that, but you'll get that I think you'll get that at the end of this if it's if it's Ohio State and Georgia. Like, how do you think the non-affiliated fans spread out? Do you think it's along conference lines? It's along geographical lines?
Or just who you despise at the moment less?
Oh,
I don't know.
I'll tell you what. Let's say Notre Dame gets through. Let's say Notre Dame, you've got Notre Dame in your national championship game. So let's say you've got a Notre Dame, Ohio State, or a Notre Dame, Texas national championship game. Do you think all the unaffiliateds go with whoever is playing against Notre Dame because people either like Notre Dame or hate them?
I actually think, and like, we want to do tinfoil hat Tuesday because we can do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Oh, wait, hold on. Stop. You and I talked on the phone, a little behind the curtain of the show, about things that we can repeat as segments in the off season.
That could be one. Yeah.
Tinfoil Hat Tuesday is now a thing.
Yeah. So tinfoil hat Tuesday, Andy. I think that people have kind of caught on to the way that ESPN covers the sport. And whether you like it or not, they present information in a way. And the thing that bothers me the most, and there's no way we have the bandwidth to unpack the seating and all that stuff right now. We'll do it. But the way that ESPN presents certain things and arguments, I feel like changes based on who the person or the program they're talking about is, where quality wins only matter because that's the leg that the SEC has to stand on, and winning totals don't. And the next year, if Alabama has Texas' schedule and they're 11-1, and I don't know, I feel like the argument changes based on who they're talking about, not necessarily the argument. And I think people are catching on to that. And I don't know if it's just me or maybe it's my sliver of Twitter. I don't know. But I do think that there is a certain level of SEC fatigue. I think people are just kind of tired of the bullcrap a little bit, of like everybody in the SEC should get in and nobody else should. Like, I think that Notre Dame.
You think people are just now tired of that?
No,
it's a new concept.
I think it's bubbling to a certain high right now. And I don't know if it's just me, but like it is like, what were the largest talking points of the first round? Paul Feinbaum, Kirk Herbstreit, and who should have been and who should have been out. And it's all predicated around the same thing. And the SEC is the deepest, most talented conference in college football. Nobody's denying it, but there's a big country out there of people who like football. And people are just tired of hearing why teams that lost 3 times should be in over teams that win 11-1. So the reason why I'm saying that is like, is there Georgia? Are we tired of Georgia? Like, I feel like,
oh yeah,
there are more people.
Georgia's the Death Star. Like, you're right. Yeah. So if it's,
and don't you think there are more people rooting for Notre Dame now than ever before?
Probably. Now that I think about it, you're probably, because and every time we mention Notre Dame, and the reason I said people hate Notre Dame is when we mention Notre Dame on this show, the chat lights up. Nobody cares about Notre Dame. I hate Notre Dame. Like that's it, instantly. Like, Notre Dame evokes, this is why Notre Dame should join a conference. Like, Notre Dame not being in a conference personally offends millions of people. And I don't know why, but it does.
There is a reaction. I don't know there is a physical reaction to Notre Dame. And I think that the hatred of Notre Dame stems for decades for many of reasons. I think, like you said it once to me, and it's true, is that their television deal was the first premier deal where they're on TV every week. I think it's the private school aspect. I think it's how hard to get in. I think it's the fact that a lot of people root for them that didn't go there. Like, there's a lot of stuff and like religious aspects. Like there's a lot
they used to be the only team that played every game on national TV. Like that was a huge thing.
Every Irish Catholic person in the entire country, no matter where they're from or what their education background is a Notre Dame fan. Like I think that just irritates people. It's
very hard to explain to people under 30 how mad people used to get because Notre Dame was on TV. Like, because it used to be your favorite team, whether you're like a fan of a Big Ten team or an SEC team or an ACC, didn't matter. Like your favorite team wasn't on national TV every week, even the really good ones. And it drove people insane. And so that's another big piece of it.
Being driven insane right now by Notre Dame isn't going to change. I think that reaction's going to, and I think that reaction gets passed down. Like I think people now hate Notre Dame because their parents hated Notre Dame and they don't really know the actual genesis of it. But do you think that more people want Notre Dame to win this week more than they ever would on the stage?
Because Georgia is the presumed, like Kirby Smart is the presumed best coach in college football. Georgia is the presumed best roster, even if this particular Georgia roster isn't. I don't know that this Georgia roster is the best roster in college football, but obviously Georgia had the best roster in college football, or one of the two best for the last 3 or 4 years. And I do think it's that there is that, because I think it's a natural response for someone who's unaffiliated to root for the team that is not considered the favorite. And Georgia is only a slight favorite in this game, but Georgia's been the favorite. You know, if you said this team or the field for the national title for the past 4 years, Georgia's the team you would say.
You know, and also too, like Notre Dame, like I think that people, whether they realize it or not in the moment, Andy, root for things that they and their teams can relate to. And there are a lot of programs in college football, and I think Penn State also falls under this same bracket of like, well, if they can do it, then we can, right? Like nobody wants to feel hopeless. And like if Notre Dame can use the portal, get a quarterback, recruit at the level they've been recruiting, not being as crazy dialed into NIL as some of the other places have been in terms of acquiring talent as that being the sole reason, and then get to the semifinal by beating Georgia, then that gives Tennessee fans hope. That gives Ole Miss fans hope. And I know that they approach NIL a little bit differently, but all these teams that have been in between like 7 and 15 for the last 4 years who are like, well, what do we need to do to make a jump? I don't think the entire country just wants to see, the conglomerates are the conglomerates again. And like, it is what it is. Like we spent all year talking about how the sport is flattened and how anybody can beat anybody and how there's no truly great team. But if like the national championship game is Ohio State, Georgia, it's like after all that, it's like, this is what we get still. And like, this is what I thought was going to happen with the 12-team field, that you would have a bunch of teams that had great stories, and then you'd have 3 mega teams, and the 3 mega teams would beat the crap out of everybody else and then meet in the title game. And I don't know that there are mega teams, outside of the 2 that are playing in the Rose Bowl this week. But like, I feel like the only true
You don't think Georgia's a mega team?
I mean, in terms of the way that they're constructed and not having overt weaknesses all over the field, I don't. Like, I think like they have a bunch of talent, but they have like identifiable, like, here are the 3 things you could fix about them. Mega team talent wise, yes. Super team in application, no. Is that fair?
Okay, it is fair. It tracks with what we've said all season. Like, they don't have the abundance of first rounders on the defensive line like they used to have.
The reason why
they may have one.
The reason why we think they could win a national championship, though, with what we've seen this year, is a result of respecting their talent, though.
Yeah.
So, like, 2 things can be true at the same time. But I'm saying, like, in terms of, like, when those teams, when Ohio State and Oregon are playing full gear, nobody has looked like that in college football this year anywhere else. So, maybe that'll get proven wrong. But I feel like the only true Cinderellas in this bracket are Arizona State, Boise, and SMU, right? Like, does anybody else fall in that line? Or if you're a traditional big, like Clemson was the lowest seed and they had to win their last game to get in. But I don't know that people viewed Clemson as a Cinderella. Maybe Indiana was a Cinderella too. And like,
Indiana was absolutely a Cinderella.
Was there a huge groundswell of go IU last weekend? Like, I mean, there were no IU fans in the stadium. I didn't see a lot on Twitter of like, maybe, in the South, they were hoping that
the Notre Dame fans made sure that there were no IU fans in the stadium by making sure the ticket prices stayed high.
And I also think too, Andy, that like the anti-Cinderella movement as it pertains to IU was so strong that you had people in the South rooting for Notre Dame. I'm going to say it again. You had people in the South rooting for Notre Dame because they wanted to be like, haha, I told you they didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
Like if IU would have lost 31-29 in a like awesome game.
Right. That would have disturbed their narrative. Yes.
So like it is a bizarre thing. And I really, on one hand, it's like, well, do people want to see Ohio State or Oregon and Georgia in the national title game? Probably not. But at the same time, too, it would restore order in what we
But
feel
I think
like
they kind of do. Like, I want to see, like, if you told me the winner of the Ohio State, Oregon, and Georgia were playing the national title game in a couple of weeks, I'd be like, that sounds great. I'm happy to watch that.
Because I'm gonna drag you into the pits of hell if that's what you want right now. Like, do you want it after all this? You want it to be
the teams we think are the best playing for the national championship? Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, that's called the 4-team field.
Okay. I don't know how to break this to you, Ari, but the Steelers and the Texans are not going to make the Super Bowl. I'm okay with them being the playoff.
In order to ensure what you want, though, you got it every year.
No. Listen.
Yeah.
No, but here's the thing, Ari. If Indiana had made it over one of those teams because it won its way there, then Indiana proved us wrong on the field.
Yeah.
It's your argument. This is your argument. You're the one who wrote this after the Indiana Notre Dame game.
Well,
now we know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there is this entitlement where certain teams feel like they should go because of the way that they're constructed. And I think in the past, that's probably helped a little bit.
I'm not saying I want to see Oregon and Georgia placed in the national title game opposite each other. I want them to play their way into it.
I want the teams who are in the field, if we have the system, and we do, to earn their way in. I think it is a privilege to play in the playoff. I don't think it's a prerogative, right? Like I think that
right. And I do think
you could simultaneously believe that Alabama is better than Indiana while also thinking Indiana should be in. So
and we can say Penn State got the easiest path. We can say Texas got an easier path. But the fact of the matter is they're going to run into somebody in the semis that is very, very good.
And eventually,
so they're going to have to earn their way in anyway.
So, yeah, I think the Cinderella thing is really interesting. But really, would you say that I'm right on like IU, Boise, SMU, and Arizona State? Are they the 4?
They're the 4. Yes, I do think though if they're like if tonight, and by the way, we're coming on live after the game tonight, so as soon as the game's over, your old pals Andy and Ari are here for you. If this game is down to the wire, if it's close at the end of the game, I would say that 90% of the country will be rooting for Boise State.
I think that's fair.
Because they like it's not as if it's an abstract thing, like I want it to be, I want to see the talented teams. In the moment when you're watching and you don't really care about either of these teams, like human instinct is I want the underdog to win.
The funny thing, though, is that like Penn State, though a team that plays in a 110,000 person stadium and goes 10-2 every year, is also a newcomer. Like if they win the game and they get to the
playoff before,
if they get to the semis, like that's a new blood. So like I think in the basketball tournament, like every single year, we feel like we get at least 1 or 2 new teams in the Final Four, or teams that haven't been there in a while. And like college football has been so repetitive in terms of the 8 teams or the 6 teams that just taking turns or trade turns playing in the semis, that like anybody that isn't Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson is like a breath of fresh air. And like last year was a step in the right direction in terms of Washington and
Texas,
Michigan playing. And Texas,
right?
These were all new teams. But now we're in a place where, I think college football.
But hey, listen, Oregon hasn't been there since 2014.
That's right. I guess Oregon is, but like Oregon too has like not. I don't know if I would put them in the like Penn State category because it's been 10 years, but it hasn't been like 30. Like,
well, I think that, like they've also been so close in terms, like they've been really good
every year.
Yeah,
and it's just they haven't gotten over the hump. And like Penn State,
you could argue that Penn State has been right there too. Like Penn State would have made this format of tournament 6 times since
Well,
2016.
the difference between Penn State and Oregon is this one simple fact. Penn State played in the Big Ten East for a decade and was directly compared to one of the monsters of the sport every single year, whereas Oregon was on the West Coast and separated.
And then Michigan became a monster at the end of the Big Ten East life cycle.
And like,
too.
I think I've made this mistake with Penn State during my career, but like I've been harsh about Penn State because I grade them through Ohio State's lens, and that's not their prerogative. So like they have been directly compared to an in division rival that was just unbeatable for such a long period of time that you almost like never gave them a chance just because of that. Whereas Oregon was able, like I think you could make the case that if Penn State were in the Pac-12 playing that schedule, you know, barring all the travel and stuff, that they would have broken through at least one of those years because they've had really good teams. So and they had teams that, frankly speaking, went toe to toe with some of the best Ohio State teams from that era, like winning in 2016 and losing by 1-2 years in a row in the subsequent years. Like they've done pretty good. So, you know, we'll see what happens with them.
Let's talk about a very important player for Penn State right now, Ari. Let's talk about, because Drew Allar has been a lightning rod this season, and he's coming back. He's already announced it. I think he's coming back because he thinks he can be 1-1 in the 2026 draft. I think that, and then you hear people go, oh, Drew Allar, you know, he looks the part, but he doesn't play the part. We've seen him play the part in the Big Ten championship game, I think, but obviously Penn State's defense couldn't keep up with Oregon's offense in that game. Drew Allar against Boise State, he has a chance to help lead his team to the semis, help continue to build his reputation as a great Penn State quarterback, because I think right now he's not viewed through that lens, even though he could potentially take them farther than they've been in a long time. Let's look at his PrizePicks number for this game, this Boise State game. 225.5 passing yards. If you're not playing PrizePicks, download that app, use code Staples, play 5, get $50 instantly. We're talking about squares. You pick a square, and it can be a college football, NFL, NBA, darts, esports, you name it. You can mix and match sports. But we're talking college football. We're talking Fiesta Bowl right now. Drew Allar, 225.5 passing yards. You decide if it's going to be more or less. Ari, I don't even think he needs to hit this number for Penn State to win this particular game, because I think this is one where if you can control Ashton Genty on the other side of the ball to a point, or even let Ashton Genty score a couple touchdowns and gain 150 yards, you can win this game 23 to 14 or 23 to 17 and be fine. Yeah.
I think it's the Genty rushing total is going to be the story of this. It's like, is he going to go crazy, or is like, because Drew Allar played like crap last week and they didn't even sweat. So like this reliance on him to play this perfect game, they're going to need that, but they're going to need that in the next round. You know, when
here's the thing though. What if Genty's having a great game and it's close? Allar's going to have to make some big throws. Now, I think with Penn State, there's another guy we need to talk about on their offense, and that's Tyler Warren. He's a tight end in name only. He plays like 90 different positions. They feed Tyler Warren when they need it. You know, you look at Tyler Warren's last 5 games, 33 receiving yards against SMU. They didn't need him because SMU kept handing him the ball. Against Oregon, they were feeding him. Against Minnesota, when they were in deep doo-doo, they were force feeding him. Like, if this game's close, your Tyler Warren 76.5 receiving yard number more than is probably the one you want to hit, because they're going to have to use him if this game's close.
Yeah, for sure. The thing that is interesting to me, and the one thing that we've kind of forgotten about since Penn State played a really good game against Oregon, is that at a certain point, they might get put in a position where a receiver needs to make a play, and I'm not sure they have good enough receivers. Like the game they played against Ohio State is burned into the frontal lobe of my brain. You know, right. And it's like Tyler Warren is an exceptional player. And I mean, I guess if he has one of those USC games where he just touches the ball 31 times and has 250 yards of offense, then he can win you a game. But if they get into a point where they need people to get space for chunk plays, like I think they're going to have a lot of problems. So like, they need to run the ball really efficiently. Drew Allar, I think, needs to run the ball himself very efficiently, because that's an aspect of his game, Andy, that you've seen kind of open up here the last few weeks. The ability to escape.
I think that's the part of the game that's the part of his game that I think we probably underestimated. And when he is scrambling, keeping drives alive with his feet, he's a much more dangerous quarterback. He's a good athlete.
Yeah. For sure. So like I'm kind of confused with Penn State, because on one hand it's like, oh yeah, they've got Drew Allar who's peaking at the right time. They've got, Tyler Warren. They've got a really good defensive line and really great running backs. And it's like, if they put this thing together, they could go to the title game and dare I say, maybe even win it. But then on the other hand, it's like, are they really deficient? And is that deficiency going to be exposed on the biggest stage? Like, I don't know which one it is. So, but for me, like, I was just like looking up first round money difference between 1-1 and like number 15 or number 9. Yeah. It's dramatic. So if that's
so, this is why he's doing this.
It's 41 million, I think, for number 1 overall and 22 for 15.
Wow.
So, like, again, and if you can bridge the gap and get a few $1 million, I guess, in NIL, you take that risk. I don't know, but I feel like it's bizarre that he's coming back.
I just think of all the ones, and we can get into the Todd McShay, Carson Beck discussion too, but of all the ones that could improve themselves next year, like if Drew Allar gets some receivers that are dangerous, that scare you, his numbers could be crazy. Like, I love the way Andy Kotelnicki calls this offense. I think they're limited in what they can do. And Tyler Warren's great, but if you have just traditionally good receivers with this quarterback and the level of offensive line play they've been able to maintain under Phil Troutwine, who's their line coach, like Drew Allar could put up monster numbers, but specifically tonight, he doesn't have to. So as you're choosing your PrizePicks squares, remember that. He doesn't have to light it up for them to win. Download the PrizePicks app. Use the code Staples when you sign up. Play $5, get $50 instantly. All right, let's talk about the draft discussion thing, because Todd McShay went on his podcast and just ripped Carson Beck for coming back. And I thought that was really interesting, because Carson Beck's been in college 5 years. Like, I know we've seen Michael Penix in a 6th year get better, but I don't know that there's a lot of people that in a 6th year are going to be that different than they were in a 5th year. Like, at what point do you say, well, this is where you're going to be, and this is the draft prospect you're going to be?
Well, the other thing too that you have to take into account is that, I mean, Carson Beck would be the presumed starter at Georgia, right? Next year, if he were to come back.
Yes.
And he's like, hey, I want to come back.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm the only one who's thinking this, but the man suffered a very serious injury.
Yes.
Okay.
UCL.
Like, it's not like, I know that football and baseball are different, but that's not a 3-week thing. Okay.
Right. He's supposed to be able to throw in April.
And, from a portal aspect, not that this would be the case, but if it ever got to a point where he were to explore another option to get a bag, that maybe Georgia could, Georgia probably could, but like, this is hypothetical only.
Yeah.
Like, his market would be limited as a result of this injury.
Correct.
Because people aren't going to go all in on a rental if that rental has flat tires, right? So you might be able to pump them up and get a bunch of miles out of that person, but you don't want to pump up tires on a rental car, right? So like, that's that. But then on the other hand too, it's like, if you are recovering from an injury this way, do you want to go back to Georgia, run it back, recover from that injury, not make the money that you're going to make, even though you have a Lambo, and then risk re-injuring yourself? Like, I feel like it just makes sense for him to go get the NFL clock started at this point. So like, I don't know, like what was the basis of Todd's argument? Like, I don't even know what
he was saying. That NFL GMs were saying he needs another year to develop, and I just don't know what more we're going to see from him. I don't know how much more he's going to develop. Yeah. Now, look, I people came at me yesterday after I tweeted that with what about Michael Penix? And Michael Penix is a little different story because Michael Penix was hurt for 4 years of his career. Though I would argue that Michael Penix, after year one at Washington, would have been a fine NFL quarterback. And then Dylan Gabriel this year is in year 6. But I would also argue that Dylan Gabriel's the same quarterback he was at Oklahoma last year. He's got better players around him. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're not wrong on that. Tinfoil Hat Tuesday, Andy.
Woo! Let's go.
Are we 100% certain that Georgia fans want him back?
No. And that's
Okay.
the other thing. I don't know that they think Gunnar Stockton is better. Because I've said this on a bunch of shows because they keep asking, is Gunnar Stockton be better than Carson Beck? I don't know that people think Carson or that Stockton's going to be better than Beck because Kirby Smart is not sentimental. Like if he thought Gunnar Stockton was better, he would have already started.
He would be been playing, yeah.
But if Gunnar Stockton can give you equal to Beck, maybe in a slightly different package, they're fine with that. I don't think they're viewing this as, oh no, what are we going to do now? I think they feel pretty comfortable that either Stockton's going to start or Ryan Puglisi's going to start next year, or they're going to go get a portal guy. Like, I don't think they're that worried about it.
So, like, the saucy take that we're not doing today is if Georgia advances to the national title game this year, the book on Beck there is closed, right?
Yes.
Like
yes.
you don't get that far in this tournament with another quarterback with the way that he played this past year and go, okay, we need him back. Like I don't know what the calculus of that's going to be. And I don't know, maybe if Georgia wins every game 13-10 and that's how they do it and it's all defense again. But Georgia's defense this year, though very good, doesn't stand head and shoulders above the other defenses in this tournament the way that it did 4 years ago. Like it's got a good defense, but so does Oregon, so does Ohio State, so does Penn State.
Right.
Like,
It's not the 2021 or 22 Georgia defenses.
Right.
Those
were 2021 defense. I could be playing quarterback for them and they'd have a chance in every game. So but that's not what they are this year. At times they've been excellent, but they haven't been like, you can't score points on this team no matter what. And I think they're going to run into teams or a team at some point that has an equal or slightly better defense than them. And when they do, it's going to be a problem for them. And it was almost a problem for them against Texas because you could make the case that Texas's defense is just as good, if not better. And they found a way to win, but they found a way to win because Texas's offense wasn't doing anything either. So I feel like if Georgia is going to ascend to where people think they're going. You pick them to win the national title. I don't know if you still believe that that's true.
I do. I believe they can do it. I don't know that I'm that confident picking them over Ohio State, Oregon, Notre Dame, Texas. It's not a huge confidence pick.
But if you're right at the end, and I doubt that you will be, but if they are, it will be as a result of quarterback play that we're not expecting, in my opinion.
Well, we're about to find out. Now, we talked about Drew Allar and how he doesn't have the best wide receivers and how that is a problem. And we just talked about Dylan Gabriel and how I don't know that he's that different from who he was at Oklahoma, except he has better players around him, better line in front of him, better receivers to throw to. You're covering the Rose Bowl. We're going to see some amazing wide receivers in this game. We've seen this game once already, Oregon and Ohio State, and the stars played really well. The star receivers played really well in the first game for both teams. Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Buka for Ohio State, Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart for Oregon were all awesome in that game. You talked to Tez Johnson and Jeremiah Smith yesterday at Media Day, and I'm curious, when you're talking to, because I feel like good receivers and also good DBs for that matter, there's just an aura they give off. I am him. Mm-hmm. Can you feel that when you were standing 2 feet away from Tez Johnson or standing 2 feet away from Jeremiah Smith? Can you feel that?
Yeah, I did 5-minute videos with both, and we only are going to show minute clips here, so you won't see it. But I asked Jeremiah Smith if he anticipated that he would be at this level this soon in his college career. And he said no, and we know he was lying. You could feel it. It was He goes, yeah, like, NFL GMs don't check tape of your freshman year, so it doesn't really matter. I'm like, Jeremiah, they check tape of your freshman year. Like,
the
started laughing.
NFL GM, like, if we grabbed like Jason Light from the Bucks right now and said, would you take Jeremiah Smith in this draft if you had a top 5 pick? He'd go, yes. Like, there's no question.
Yeah. So I think that, like, and like they always smile in a very sly way. Like, it's like, that, like, that quieted confidence to the media, but that they're talking out there and stuff. And like, they're both really good. And I think that you could make the case, if you put the receiver rooms from both of these teams together, that this is the most talented total receiver package that you would have had at a media day in like ever. Right? Maybe some of those Alabama teams. Some of the Alabama teams that, had 4 or 5 studs in the future.
I'd say the 2020 but that was done virtually. The 2020 end of the season Alabama Ohio State national title game, that was probably the closest you'll ever get. That was probably the most you'll ever get in one room.
Like, in terms of like receivers, there's a reason why these are the 2 most explosive teams left. Because they have guys that can get you 50 yards on one play on every single play. And I don't know that Penn State has that guy. I don't know that Texas has that guy, especially with Isaiah Bond being injured. I don't know.
No, he's going to play. So
no, I know. Having been injured, though, I wonder how much of that was the reason we feel that way.
Yeah, I would say Gunnar Helm is the downfield threat I worry about most for Texas, which is like, he's a great player, but it's not the same as Jeremiah Smith.
And it's the same thing with Tyler Warren. It's a great player, but it's not the same thing as Jeremiah Smith. We know Georgia doesn't have one. I mean, is there another player at the receiver position in the entire playoffs that can measure up to anybody in either of these 2 rooms?
No.
That I'm not remembering?
Georgia doesn't have one. Notre Dame doesn't have one.
Doesn't have one. Boise doesn't have one. Penn State doesn't have one. Texas might have one in Isaiah Bond to a certain extent.
And the best one Arizona State had is hurt.
So, like, and we've talked about how important receiver play's been. So, like, quarterbacks being like, Carson Beck had a down year and Drew Allar's stats aren't that great. And Cade Klubnik didn't light the world on fire from a passing perspective. It's like, because they don't have anybody to throw the ball to. Who are they going to throw it to?
Yeah.
So,
but we're going to see in the Rose Bowl, there are guys that can be thrown to. You talked to Tez Johnson, and it was very interesting because I didn't realize they have a committee that chooses the uniforms.
I didn't either.
So he explained that whole process. So here's Tez Johnson explaining the uniform committee.
Jerseys? Yeah, we got so many, we don't know which ones to pick from. So.
But what's it like at Oregon when there's so many of them? Like, do you get juiced for certain ones, or?
I mean, you pick them, and then you show them to the team, and you like, y'all like this combination for this week? Say, nah, we don't, then we just go to the next combination. So, yeah.
Does this happen every week?
Yeah, like we just send them to them and like, hey, what combination you like this week? I like the black and white. Somebody don't like the black and white, we vote on it. All right, boom, let's go to the green. You like the green? All right, let's go to the green.
The whole team votes on the uniform
Not the
combination?
whole team, we got a uniform committee.
Okay, who's on the uniform committee?
Me, Trayshawn, Big Mark, Bossa, who else? Dante Manning.
How did you get on the uniform committee?
Senior.
I didn't know if it was like who dresses the best in the offseason.
Well, we ain't got to talk about who got the best drip on the stuff like that, but
who has the best drip?
You talking to him.
So I don't know if you asked him, like the jerseys they're wearing at Media Day, are those the ones they're wearing in the game? Because
they are.
I love those. The white with the puddles, the duck on the sleeve.
Yeah.
The ones I hate, and I don't know if you got into this with him, the eggshell ones, they're awful. Like, I know there are people who love those. Those are terrible.
Yeah. The problem with Oregon's uniforms is that they have so many combinations that sometimes they nail the jerseys and then they mess up the pants and they mess up the helmet. Like, the helmet that they're wearing with the jerseys in this game is the wrong helmet. Like, Puddles should be on the helmet too. And
yeah, that I like the
wearing the
helmet.
silver chrome winged ones with that, and it's like that doesn't look right to me. But like
those are my favorite helmets, but I want like a cleaner white jersey. Uniform. Yeah.
So
the first time they debuted those helmets, those chrome ones, that was against Russell Wilson in Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl. Yeah. I just remember watching them run out of time. I'm like, that is the coolest helmet I've ever seen in my life. Like,
yeah, and they have really, really, really cool uniforms. And like the thing about them is that you might not like one and I might love it. And like, I didn't love the combination that they wore in the Big Ten title game in that picture you're seeing, but like some people loved
Yeah,
it.
the all black with the green helmet.
Yeah, like that wasn't my favorite, but you know, there are times where Oregon comes out and it's just like, wow, that stuff's cool. But the throwback stuff that's like modernized with the Nike, like I think is a really nice touch. And you know, for Oregon, their tradition is having these uniforms, and I think it's pretty cool that you know they allow the players to pick, because you know how much like you know, I think that like players like Tez told me he never even had to take a visit to Oregon because he knew what they were about before he went there. Like he didn't go. And
I did a story on this for SI years ago, and I talked to Rob Mullins, who's the AD there now, and I talked to some folks from Nike about and some coaches, like, because remember the coaches from Bilotti through Kelly, Mark Helfrich, like there were a lot of the same coaches, a lot of the same assistant coaches, and some of those older guys like Gary Campbell, you know, would tell you about what it was like, because Gary Campbell recruited Texas for Oregon, what it was like early, where you have to basically explain where Oregon is on a map to people. And then once the uniform thing started and it became a thing, all of a sudden high school kids are like, I know, oh, the Ducks, oh, the uniforms, like immediately recognized. And I don't think people understand that's one of the hardest things to do is bridge an awareness gap. And they did it.
Yeah. Did you see the yellow helmet that they're wearing in the pictures right now? With that, you know, like that's the helmet they should be wearing. In my opinion.
So they were in these jerseys, yes, with the O, which is the one they brought in the early 2000s. Yeah, that would be sweet.
Like,
it's funny
that
we all
combination with the mascot. But everyone has takes, and I think it's cool that they put the power in the players to choose what they want to wear. It's a nice tradition, and to be old and to earn that, I think is pretty cool. So he also told me that he was sponsored by Aloe, which I thought was interesting because
a little yoga brand action.
But it's like also too, it's just like your entire existence is a Nike world, and he wants to sign with Nike after the fact in the NFL. And it's like also at the same time, he's like, yeah, I do Aloe and I give all the pants to my girlfriend. And it's like
that's okay. We have the reason now. Like she's the reason for. She's like, I love Aloe. You're gonna have to, yeah.
But Aloe has great men's stuff too. I don't know if you've tried any of it on.
They do. I don't, but I know several people who are addicted to it. So yes, I am addicted. However, if we're talking fashion and what to wear, my new Axia Time watch. So this is the Odysseus 2, and so this is now the third band I've worn with it, because I'm changing things up. I'm checking the different looks, because it's got a great stainless steel band that it comes with if you want to look more formal. There's a really cool orange one that it comes with, and then I got a quick release navy leather that goes with the navy face. But these watches, AxiaTime.com, check them out. The official watch of the College Football Playoff and the Heisman Trophy. Right now, if you're a Duck fan, you want to look timeless. Like the Oregon uniforms are great, but this is a timeless look. The Oregon Axia watch that is celebrating the Ducks trip to the College Football Playoff. You see it here with the yellow band. Looks amazing. We got the Ohio State one. You can get the Arizona State one, the Boise State one, you name it. These things look so cool. They're Swiss made, automatic. I get so many compliments on this thing when I wear it. And I told you the other day, Ari, like I've kind of ditched my Apple Watch now. Like this is my watch from now on. And the thing is, this is going to be my watch for a long, long time, because this is beautifully made. It is very finely crafted. Like you feel it and you're like, this is a serious piece of architecture here. So go to AxiaTime.com, find your perfect timepiece. I'm showing you the Michigan Jim Harbaugh watch right now. Trust me, there's one for you there. These things are awesome. AxiaTime.com, the official timepiece of the CFP and the Heisman Trophy. All right, Ari. This is a good segue into this talk with Jeremiah Smith, because Jeremiah Smith is the luxury brand of college football players. Like we talk about different brands, and you know there are brands that make things, and they're the ones that just cost quite a bit more, and you're like, well, why? And then you see how they're made and the craftsmanship. Like we talk about Axia Time. Like now, Axia Time is a great deal compared to your other Swiss-made watches. But like when you're looking at it, you're looking at precision craftsmanship. Same thing with some of these luxury brands. Jeremiah Smith is built different. than other receivers. And I thought about that as I was watching the video we're about to show, where you're asking him what brand would he like to endorse, represent? Like, what's the one that jumps out? So let's watch that video.
Let me ask you this. If you could have one brand that you could make up right now be your sponsor, who would you pick? And why? If you got their stuff too.
Like right now?
Yeah,
any
just
brand?
make it up. Yeah, like what would you want?
That's a hard one.
Like stuff maybe you already buy.
Yeah, I'm into like clothes and stuff. I'll say, Louis Vuitton, I should say. They don't really do NIL, but Louis Vuitton probably one.
Why don't they do NIL, you think?
I don't know. It's just Louis Vuitton. I can't really answer that one. But
So we could do the Louis Vuitton NIL to Jeremiah Smith.
That'd be crazy.
I'll take 10%. If I get it done.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, probably Louis Vuitton. But something I wear all the time. So yeah.
I think we got to start a bidding war because, like, look, Jeremiah Smith needs to be Louis Vuitton, Hermes, like something super premium that is not easy to get.
I think the problem is that the college football fan isn't the right demographic. I don't know. Maybe some are, but
he's that good though. Like, it just needs to, and I get it. Like, I don't think they don't advertise with professional athletes. I don't even know if LeBron could get one. Like, if Louis Vuitton's even worried about LeBron.
Yeah, but if you threw him a few duffel bags, which would probably cost like $5,000 to them, he would post it and he'd be happy about it. It seems like pretty low hanging fruit, but at the same time too, every time you watch the stadium entrances of an NFL game, they all have their bags. So, that is you could start the campaign. If I get 10%, like, I feel like I'm personally, that was a verbal contract, right? Like, I feel like I'm personally staked in this now.
Oh yeah. Well, 10% is a good deal. There's a lot of these shady NIL agents that are trying to take 20. Like,
yeah, 10's good.
Yeah, your standard, like your NFL agent, and they limit what they can get from the player's contract with the team. But when they're doing the ad, the ad deals, they're getting like 10%.
Doesn't it?
They're not getting 20%. So I think you're driving a fair bargain, Ari.
Doesn't it? Like, the thing that struck me about talking to Jeremiah Smith, and I had talked to him a few times in person, like during his recruitment, but like how young he is. And like, it comes through in just his face, like he's like not even physically matured yet. Like, and this is a man
that's terrifying because he's already so good.
Yeah. And it's unbelievable, the talent that he has. And, I think that, given the way the first game ended, and I'm sure, between now and then we'll actually have more deeper breakdowns of these games and discuss the other players and stuff. But
I actually want to talk about the two receivers we've talked about, and then we can get into the other players as well. Because I want to play a little guess the PrizePicks number on Tez Johnson and Jeremiah Smith, because I know what it is. I want you to guess because there's something surprising about it. So I want you to guess what Jeremiah Smith's PrizePicks number for this game is, and I want you to guess what Tez Johnson's PrizePicks number for this game.
I would say Tez Johnson's number is 77.5.
You are so close.
I'm good at
75.5. So close. Yeah. You're amazing at this.
Well, the reason why I'm good at it is because we've done these videos all year and like they don't really waver. And I'm sure that Jeremiah's is somewhere in the 90s, right? Like 90.5 or something.
Whoa! Right after I talk about how great you are at this.
Oh, no?
Jeremiah's is 73.5 for this game.
Interesting. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And like he's usually in the 90s. So I wonder what that's all about. And like maybe it was
I will point out Emeka Egbuka is 59.5.
Because Emeka Egbuka had a really big game the first time they played. So it's with these, it's not always an indication of how good they are. It's an indication of, do you bet they're going to get the ball a lot this game? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you think that's what's going to happen? Because you don't know how the game is going to play out. And like, there are times, and both of these teams are talented, where it's like, this could be the Carnell Tate game where he has like 11 receptions for some reason. Like that happens all the time.
G. Scott, like it felt like they used him more against Tennessee. So I had an Ohio State fan that was mad about something I said on the show the other day, and they tweeted at me, and I want to run this by you and find out, am I crazy or is this person right? They were mad because I was saying that Ohio State's defense has been solid all season. They've been great, but against Oregon, that they're going to have to play better. And they said, well, that's the worst game of the season. I was like, is it the worst game of the season, or did Oregon just have the best offense that Ohio State played all year? Well, I think that's what happened. They held Oregon under their average.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because, like, what is a good defensive performance when you're playing a team like Oregon? Like, what's the point total that you feel good about? Like 30, right? Like, they're supposed to give up 30. Like,
they scored 32. I don't feel like that was a bad game by Ohio State's defense. I just think Oregon's really good.
I think if you asked Jim Knowles and Ryan Day right now, Oregon gets 32 points. Do you take it or leave it? They probably are like, I'll take it, right? Like, I don't know if the days of great defensive performance means you have to hold an Oregon team that's that explosive to 14. You know, like, that's just not the way the game goes. So you've seen in the playoff, you know, the teams with most explosive offenses, the super teams, they score a lot in these games. Like, there are times where teams will score 17 points in a quarter. And, like, that doesn't mean that you're playing poorly. It just means that you're playing another elite team. So, you know, I think that the onus for Ohio State is getting into the 40s in this game offensively. Like, I think that's what.
I mean, look, the games where Oregon, the games where Oregon scored less than 32. Okay, against Idaho, which we talked about a bunch at the beginning of the season. Oregon had some offensive line. They weren't quite sure what the combo was they wanted to use, so they weren't ready. They weren't what they are now. So that one, I think you can kind of throw out. Michigan State, they scored 31 only because they didn't need to score more than that. They were destroying Michigan State.
They took the foot off the pedal.
Yeah. And then Wisconsin, which was their hiccup game. That was their clunker.
If you want to criticize Ohio State's defense, here's the thing I would criticize. Because their defense is really good and really talented and really deep. Like, I think you can make the case that Ohio State's defense is better than their offense. Like, in terms of just like
player for player, I think you're
what unit
probably
are you
right. Like
off this
Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith, but then I take defensive player over complimentary offensive player almost every time.
All the way down to offensive and defensive fronts, it's a no-brainer which one you're taking. Although I thought Ohio State's offensive line played about as well as it possibly could have against Tennessee. Tennessee's defensive line did nothing in that game. And I don't know if they just had a bad game or whatever, but it seems like if Ohio State figured out their offensive line alignment, that they could make a run here. They have needed critical stops at key junctures in this season and in the past when they've had great defenses that they don't get. Right, like the Michigan drive that they took to take the 13-10 lead and to win that football game. Ohio State knew exactly what they were going to do. They had no passing potential, and they could not stop it. Like they had, I think Michigan had more yards in the fourth quarter than they did in the previous three combined in that game. And it's like, well, you're not going to hang that loss on the defense. They gave up 13 points. It's not their fault. Ohio State should win every game they play against anybody when the other team scores 13 points. But at the same time, they needed to stop late in the Oregon game, and they didn't get it, right? Like they don't get the crucial key stops at the end. And that isn't a 2024 problem. That is a problem that extends all the way back to, you know, the Georgia game a few years ago.
Peach Bowl.
The Peach Bowl. Like it extends back to the Clemson game they lost at the Fiesta Bowl in 2019. Like they need crucial stops, and their teams never seem to get it. So, like, if there is a time where Ohio State is winning or tied late, and it's a 34-34 game, and Oregon's got the ball at their own 15 with 3 minutes left, you can't let them go down the field and score. And that's where Ohio State's defense has failed. It wouldn't be the failure to me, wouldn't be giving up 34 points to Oregon. It's the inability to get the timely necessary stops to win a football game when you're playing a team that's going to score 34 points on you. And I think I'm having a internet issue. River, is it me or is it Andy?
No, it is Andy. You're good.
Okay, are people still watching us?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I'm back.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, he's back. Okay.
I'm back.
Hey,
I don't know what happened there.
did you hear what I said, or do you want me to repeat it?
I did.
Okay.
And I think either this game or if they get past this game, like they're gonna have a situation like that where if they are going to win the national title, it will be because there was a key moment where the defense made a stand at the end of a game. And that's the difference. Like like you have to do that to win national titles. You especially have to do that in this sport. Now, speaking of Ohio State and advancing in the tournament, you also talked to Brian Hartline, Ohio State's receivers coach, possibly the best receivers coach. I don't know if possibly is even the word. He's the best receivers coach in the country. His track record speaks for itself. He's an On3 fan, and he's keeping receipts.
I don't know if I mismanaged my media day time yesterday, but I just sat with him for 40 minutes and just shot the shit with him.
I'm
Like,
fascinated with him.
Yeah, like he's a really cool dude, and it's funny because he like had, and I said, he goes, I have receipts, and I said, show me, and he's like, okay, and he pulled up his those are in his camera roll, like that isn't like,
he didn't
I went
go
on
look for
Twitter
them.
and find it, like that's on his phone, and he goes, I put this stuff in my phone just in case I need to tweet anything someday, and I'm like, are you ever gonna like just like tweet out my bracket and go, this guy's an idiot? And he goes, probably not, but it makes me feel good to have these, and he's really confident about the game. He is a really cool dude, and like it was just cool to hang out with him. So it was like really funny because we talk and talk and talk and talk. It's all we do is talk. And I'm always curious of like who's paying attention, who's listening, who's keeping tabs. And I think the vast majority of people in his position aren't like paying attention. But the thing that I do love is that in the occasions that you come across like coaches or administrators who come up and be like, I listen to your show every day. Like, it's cool. So the fact that he has the receipts, if this is some sort of motivational factor, like I had to explain to him, River, since Andy's gone, that like what is the rational thing to pick, right? Like after we made those picks in the last game that we saw from them was the Ohio State game. Like you don't just go pick teams with no merit. Like you have to like actually like earn that. You have to earn the ability to get picked to go deep in the round. And like if I had to redo the bracket right now, I might not have Oregon winning in the second round, right? Like your perspective changes with new information. And the information that we had at the time was that Ohio State couldn't score more than 14 points against Michigan and gave up a crucial 5-minute drive on their home field in the fourth quarter against a team that couldn't throw a forward pass. So anyway, so what do you think we should do? Oh, he's back, baby. We're back.
Has hacked me because he doesn't want me to pick Oregon anymore. And I understand that. Like if I were Brian Hartline, I would keep that too. And I would show everybody if I kept winning. So yeah, I appreciate that. But all right, this is going to be a blast. Like we got Penn State, Boise State tonight. You and I will be on live after that, internet willing. I'm going to have a conversation with my internet after this because, like, this is go time. We got the second round of the playoffs, for God's sake. And then
you just got to unplug the thing and plug it back in. Give it a little love. Tap it on the top of the router. That happened to me in my old
greatest
house.
solution.
Do you know what I used to do? It was almost like sexual. I would go in like once a month and I would just unplug it and go, there you go, baby. Take a break, air out a little bit. Then I would plug it back in, and then she'd be like, thank you. And I'd be like, no problem. No,
well, I think that's what's going to have to happen because we have a bunch of games before we get to Penn State and Boise State tonight. So we got Alabama, Michigan, we got South Carolina, Illinois, we got Baylor and LSU. We got some fun games. So I want to watch those games. Maybe I give the internet a little break. Maybe I go to the gym or something and then come back and say, internet, the ReliaQuest Bowl is on. It's time for you to perform.
That's right. On the top of the bottom. It goes a long way.
All right. We will see you guys after the Penn State Boise game tonight. The Fiesta Bowl. We will have one college football playoff semifinalist that we will know. And then, of course, we will talk to you tomorrow and get you ready for 3 fantastic college football playoff games, or at least we hope they're fantastic. Please, not 4 blowouts. Please. We'll talk to you tonight.